All right, welcome back to Smart Real Estate Coach Podcast. Wicked Smart listeners, I'm Chris Pre. I'm your host, as usual. And today I'm actually joined by my son, Nick, who is not only a partner, but he's also a buyer specialist coach within Smart Real Estate Coach. And the reason I wanted Nick to come on with me is he has been instrumental in developing the relationship with our next guest all the way back to 2014 when he joined me. Nick's been with me in the business since 2014 fall. That's quite a journey for anyone. Mr. Paul Ritter has actually been with us since I started in this term's niche coming out of the crash, so like 2012 or 13. That's quite some history. He's got actually 25 years experience in the mortgage and credit enhancement industry. So this has like been his world. This is why there could not be a better fit to get buyers to the end zone. He's actually developed software that invokes mortgage underwriting guidelines. So it's like we put them through quasi underwriting to make sure they're going to get to the finish line. The software is super useful, sort of a what-if thing. So no matter what scenarios people have, he can work with them. He's formerly owned and operated a bunch of mortgage companies. So again, think about this. 25 years in the business, I always look for people with experience. And on top of the 25 years, he knows the mortgage end. He's trying to get buyers, true, deserved buyers, to the finish line. He's currently the owner of Credit Investigation Services. They do business as My Credit Team. We'll give you some links here in the show, and he and I, Nick, are talking, which they specialize in credit enhancement for real estate industry, though. So he just knows the nuances there. He also owns a screening company that provides the sort of the front-end evaluation of potential tenants and buyers. He's an expert in building business credit. Now, let me put a big stamp of approval on this. I have gone through this after the crash. I went through this with Paul. My wife has been through it. Family members have been through it. Team members on our team have been through it. I could not give him a better stamp of approval than that, guys. Paul is the person for you to talk to. Now, this episode is a lot about like what Paul's going to be delivering at the event, but I will tell you right now as a Wicked Smart listener, if you don't have clean credit, go speak with Paul immediately. Understand we don't get 10 cents from Paul for you going to work with Paul. I want to make sure I make that disclosure. He's well-versed in identity theft, credit repair, ID theft, all kinds of stuff. And he'll probably talk a little bit about that, but you're going to definitely want to connect with him. And what I wanted to do is make sure that he could add to the conversation and continuing our mission to help people actually close real estate deals and staying true to our commitment of providing you super real experience, not just, theory and value all the time, can potentially catalyze just a quantum leap for you in your journey. Because if we were about selling a product and moving on, this would be a different environment. The Wicked Smart community is about doing deals. So we're going to be sharing insights today on the buyer side of things. People all go, well, okay, I get how you get property, but what if I don't sell it? So we're going to talk about that and how we are very, very careful to make sure we cash buyers out versus not caring. And I'm not going to point out names. It's not important. You go on the internet, you go on podcasts, you will, in fact, hear people in our space saying, I do rent to own and I don't care if they cash out. Well, that's awful. We want to have the buyers cash out. And today's episode is all about how, why, and what to make that happen. So whether you're tuning in driving or you're listening intently, sitting, taking notes, I encourage you to listen for these actionable nuggets at the same time that you get a peer behind the curtain about our community and how we care morally and ethically. And it's part of our values. In fact, one of our values is we conduct all transactions with the highest integrity. And so we're going to give you some of that glimpse today. Quick reminder, you can find all these episodes on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe because we have Q&A Thursdays, Motivational Mondays, and we have a deal structure Sunday that's out of this world. There's like 400 plus on there. Also, I want to remind you about our upcoming two things. These are going to always be in the queue, so to speak, but we have an In the Trenches boot camp to learn more about that. It's private. It's by application. It's in our office. For some of you, it's free. For others, it's minimal. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/ITT bootcamp. ITT bootcamp. Second reminder is QLS live event this year in Boston. You got to be there September 23rd and 24th. I do want to give you a 50% off ticket. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/QLS live. Use the coupon code podcast50. That'll get you into that. All right. All right, guys, I want to make sure to remind you about our QLS Live event. We've been hosting this thing since 2016 in a basement, and now we have a brand new facility in Boston, Massachusetts this year, 2024. It's going to be September 23rd and 24th. That's a Monday and a Tuesday. It makes it easy for travel. It is literally right next to the airport. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/QLS live and use the coupon code podcast50. That's going to give you 50% off. I'll see you there. All right, Nick and Paul. So with that as a little intro and backdrop, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to giving good information today.
Actually, with both you guys, it's welcome back. Nick hangs out with me all the time. And Paul, I'm looking at my notes. You on, for the Wicked Smart listeners to know, they can go listen to, we weren't doing videos then, I don't think, listen to episode 113. That was September 18th of 2019. That's going back almost 5 years.
Well, thank you for having me back on. I'm looking forward to it. Much has changed since then. We'll go over it here in just a moment.
Well, let's talk about that because it's been a long time, but it also speaks volumes, as I just said in the intro, of how long you've been in the business and how long we've been dealing with each other for about 10 years. So what's changed since 2019? And for the listeners, you now can go to YouTube and also watch the three of us hang out. So I suggest you do that.
Oh, 2019, the year of COVID. Much changed in the world as we know it, but in this industry in specific, I'm not going to pin it to one thing, but there's many things, and probably the most prominent out of them is how the credit bureaus handle disputes in terms of credit repair. How they handle disputes. They are slow. So they used to be like, had to respond within 45 days. Now there's a lot of legislation that basically they can respond 90 days. So, Chris, you're not seeing those first results, Nick, until 90 days in. They're not seeing those results. So people have this expectation that things are going to happen quickly, and they don't. And then behind that, it becomes escalatory procedures that have to be employed, which yesteryear didn't take place. And those escalatory procedures have to do with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Attorney General. So the powers that be that govern the credit bureaus, most oftentimes, your disputes are not going to be effective until we escalate it. In other words, when those parties get involved, there's teeth involved with your disputes now. And what that causes is more things to drop off. So the overall effect of it is that things take longer now than they used to since COVID.
So I have two comments. I saw Nick shaking his head. So I want Nick to comment. I know why he's shaking his head, I think, but I want him to comment on their expectations. But Paul, do you and Nick have to set, like, is it obnoxious how clear you have to be in setting their expectations because so many people think, oh, I'm going to go to Paul, then tomorrow it's going to be fixed, and that's the magic pill. Do you and Nick have to deal with that differently now? I'd like to hear from both of you guys on that.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this goes back to even our properties that we have buyers in that we brought through the whole buyer process and met with for a buyer's meeting and the whole kit and caboodle. Even our deals, they've been in the home for 6 to 12 months, maybe even a little longer, and they're disillusioned by the fact that, well, my credit's not changing right away, and I'm like, you gotta be patient. You gotta stick with this. So even after the fact, it takes some interference from us or just more coaching with the tenant buyers to just have them hang in there. You gotta trust us. That's what we say. And we're going to get you to the finish line. But it's really coaching on all ends of this to say to them that, all right, well, this takes a little bit of time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Paul, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's really great. So here's the luxury that I have whenever I do my dog and pony show with these people. I'm basically letting them know whether or not they qualify in terms of debt to income ratio. But when it comes to credit, I'm actually doing a Zoom video. So I'm there online with them. So I have the luxury of showing them what's going on in their credit report. So when they start to see how many things that there are, including inquiries and mismatches of names and all this other stuff that's on there, their level of expectation then it starts to expand. Oh, this thing's not going to be done overnight. Because when you have that visual, people can associate with that. And more on that, it's very important that Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I'd like to cover that a little bit more up at the QLS conference, because If you're not doing that as a credit repair company, or whether you're doing your own credit report, you're trying to improve your own credit report, you're missing the mark. These things are not going to come off the credit report. So I'd like to talk more about that whenever we have more time at the QOS.
Okay, so let me mention that, Paul, and I also want to give them your link because I just said in the intro, but I didn't give them the link that they should be using, like I did, family members have, team members have, aside from what we do for a service for investors, they need to be getting with you unless they're already pristine credit. So 2 things, guys. Paul will be one of the featured speakers at QLS Live September 23rd and 24th in Boston, number 1. Number 2, if you have clients and or you, as I said earlier, want to enhance your credit like I did after the crash, then you're going to want to go to smartrealestatecoach.com/mycredit and get in touch with Paul. He'll do wonders with you. Again, almost everybody we know has gone through this situation. So yeah, come meet Paul live and get the newest and greatest. Paul, anything, like what else has changed since 19 that we could highlight? I know you'll go deeper at the event, but what else can we highlight? Anything come to mind?
There's 2 things I would like to talk about. The timeline it takes for people to become qualified for a mortgage obviously has extended. One of the, and then the market insights behind all that and how that's going to affect your tenant buyer pool. So I'd like to cover those things. The timeline to become qualified for a mortgage. You know what, guys? There's a lot more people that can't get qualified for a mortgage now that interest rates are higher.
Yeah.
We'll have this expectation of the 2 and 3 and 4% interest, which if you're going to buy a $200,000 house, $300,000 house, you can make a little less money, actually a lot less money. But now at rates at 7.5%, you get less house for the amount of money that you make. So people don't understand that, and they still have that mentality. And the mentality transcends itself even into the lease option phase, like in the rental aspects of it. When they're renting the house, they think they're going to get a $400,000 house for $1,800 a month or less, and that's just a big problem with that. The problem ends up being what's called payment shock. If you're buying a $450,000 house, your payment's going to be about $3,700 whenever you go to buy the house. If you're only charging as a real estate investor $1,800, you're only charging half of what their new payment's going to be whenever they get into the house. And the underwriters don't like that. Underwriters see that and said, whoa, how can we prove that you're able to make $3,700 a month payments if you don't need to make an $1,800 a month payments? So that's a big problem. I'll give you a little nugget right now, and that would be take the purchase price and multiply it times 0.81. And that's going to be a real close approximation of what their monthly payment's going to be, principal, interest, insurance, and taxes whenever they go to buy the house. Or you can take the loan amount times 0.9 if they're bringing in 10%. Either way you get there, it'll be about the same figure. Otherwise, you're going to have that payment shock. And people say, well, geez, the house down the road is renting for $1,800. Why can't I rent this $450,000 house for that? Well, because you're lease optioning it, you're going to be buying it. So you need to start in that mentality now to understand what you're going to be paying then. And let's say the far-fetched scenario, you say you try to compete with the industry as a real estate investor. Let's say I offer my property for $2,000 a month. Well, gee, if that happens, I still have an out. You have me on your side talking to the people and saying, hey, the way I would view this is through the lens of Chris is giving you, or Nick's giving you a really good deal here. That enables you to save up money over time so you have it for down payment. So I always try to paint the real estate investor as in the best light possible. So whenever they go to do the transaction, they're looking forward to, if they haven't met you in person yet, they're looking forward to meeting you, and they're looking forward to doing the transaction with you.
Yeah. Okay. So this piece is huge. So that sort of bridges the gap because of the way the interest rates are right now. Because I remember in like 13 and 14 somewhat, but also, of course, when their interest rates were crazy low, there's a pro and a con there, right? You explain the challenge with the buyer side, but the good part on the investor side, say for Nick and I and the other people that are in this terms niche, is that we do have such high mortgage rates now. We can sometimes push our numbers up a little bit, which is nice. There's pros and cons to that always. Yep.
Nick, anything else you want to throw on top of that?
Yeah, I was just going to say the magic word for this, whenever you're setting buyers up at the beginning and getting them into a house with a down payment, all of our homes require a down payment, is disclose. So I think Paul touched on it, the fact that, yeah, realistically, we try to do it within a few $100s of what their payment's going to be once they get a loan. However, the reality is market conditions sometimes don't enable us to do that. So we have to say to them right at the beginning that, hey, just so you know, and this comes when we're meeting with them face to face at the buyer's meeting, you're with the down payment of what you're putting down, your payment when you get a loan, obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but when you get a loan, your payment may jump by a few $100s. I want to make sure you're okay with that. And if they're not okay with that, we say, all right, well, where would you like to add another 20% down? Because that's the only thing that's really going to affect having the higher payment by a few $100s. So we never try to mislead anyone. We're always disclosing. And buyers that are putting a down payment on a home, chances are they're usually going to say, yeah, okay, I'm okay with my payment jumping by a few $100s, because then I'll own the home. I'll be an owner. My name will move to title as opposed to just renting it.
So I got a question for both of you guys, because I don't know the answer. So on the debt to income rate, the DTI page that we have them sign, which really covers our butt, and Paul sets that up, is there anywhere in there that this issue is addressed, meaning your payment might be low and then your payment's going to jump to this? Or is it just okay to have it that that's going to be what your payment's going to be, like it's in that disclosure? In other words, does that also cover our butt for that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You get your line there. It says that they're not going to materially change their income or their debt load because this is what they're going to be paying whenever they go to buy the house. And it calculates all the ratios out. So the expectation level was already set. It is so refreshing to hear Nick talk about it and say that he's basically softening the blow, letting them know, hey, your payment may go up because whenever I come into the picture, and I call myself the transaction engineer whenever I'm talking with them. So I'm here basically, I'm not the one that makes the decision, but I'm here to help you and everybody understand what's going to be the payment whenever it comes time for this transaction to occur. So as a transaction engineer, I have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to all parties involved to make certain that this transaction goes down. I tell them there are two closing tables. The first closing table, they get the keys and they move into the house. And the second closing table is where they're putting their name on the title to the property. I like to simplify things as best as possible, but yet at the same time, make them understand the concepts of being able to successfully do a lease option transaction. One more thing I may add to that is I am so excited to be part of the QOS, because as people are there, not only my time on stage to go over this material, you're able to come up and ask me these questions and the psychology of selling. I've been doing this transaction engineer stuff since 2012. So I'd love to allow you to pick my brain and talk about the ones that failed, the ones that succeeded, and the percentages and why, and the red flags that I see, all that kind of stuff. Looking forward to talking at the QOS about it. And again, I'll make myself as available as possible.
Well, I got a question. We just alluded to. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, Paul, I hope we're aligned. I mean, we've been working together doing this for 10 years now. So I hope we're aligned on what we're saying.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting, Paul, you said I don't make the decision. I just do this and such. But I don't know many times where Nick or any of our associates who utilize your service would go, well, Paul told me this, but I'm going to do this. They listen to you like word for word. So that I want the listeners to know that, like, your service is sort of like our guideline. That's how we determine if we're going forward or not.
Well, let me talk about that. The times that we have said no, we have our own plans for this property. It's always burned us years ago when we've done that. So we gotta be in alignment. So, and it sounds like we are right now.
I know you said you're going to go over a bunch of things at the QS Live in Boston, Paul, but you said something I'd like to actually drill down a little bit. What percentage of people that, and not just through Wicked Smart, but what percentage of people that join your credit service don't complete what you would consider their full term, so to speak, like to fix what they originally set out to fix or improve, if I'm asking that right. Like, is there a percentage of people that just drop and you go, what the heck? We did all this, do they drop too early? Do they quit? What percentage,
Yeah, I do know. What percentage drop out of my service altogether before they complete it?
Yeah.
I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it's kind of high. It's about 70% complete it, 30% drop out. So
that makes sense to me, though.
I would like to see it a lot higher, but people, they lose their job. They misread. Most common reason they drop out is they misread what their expectations that were here, and the results lag behind it. And I always tell them in the very beginning, and they with buyers, they forget this stuff. It's going to be 90 days till you see any results, and you're going to get this letter from TransUnion that says that we're not doing anything. And that letter is misguiding. And the letter is basically there to drive a wedge between me, the client, and the credit bureaus, because the credit bureaus, I create work for them. And they don't like it. And they don't get paid for that work. So you got a level set. So once you kind of get that diffused, and then, so the people have to start I tell them after they leave my service, you're going to get results for their 90 days. Because what happens is when I do disputes today, the results for that come in 90 days later. So a lot of times people will quit, and then they'll see their score staying the same or going down even a little bit because maybe they charged up their credit cards while they're in my service, and then they'll quit, and then the score goes up. They'll say, "See, I quit, and my score went up." Well, that's because the results are now coming in. So you got to basically diffuse all this and let people know kind of how the system works.
Yeah. No, love it. Okay, anything we left on the table, Paul? I know there's a whole bunch of stuff, but is there maybe a couple more high points that you'd like to at least get out there and we can kind of delve deeper in September?
Yeah, there's actually a couple of things. I want to thank you guys for all the business you've brought to me in my company. I have a couple of things that I'm working on right now. Nick, you're going to be so excited when you hear this. I got this thing called a pre-app. Now, Nick has used, I had an old pre-app, Nick, and it didn't work really that well. So I've changed the dynamics of it, and I'm still working on it now, but I'm going to roll it out at the QLS, and it's going to be, there's a whole workflow behind this pre-app. In other words, and because what you guys do is masterful. The way you guys bring people into what you call the buyer's meeting quickly, that gets them engaged, and they know that this thing's going somewhere that's going to be beneficial. So nobody else out there does kind of like what you guys are doing, and it's a beautiful thing. But from a workflow standpoint and in an application standpoint, from my perspective, there's a whole bunch of stuff behind there. Like if we set a buyer's meeting for a certain date, and you're at that buyer's meeting, you're going to take a down payment, or that you're going to actually sign the documents on that buyer's meeting, just upon initial application, that creates many, many what ifs. And those what ifs then flow into how I handle it up to the time that they go through the buyer's meeting. Like, for example, Nick's like, okay, Paul, so if they don't call you by Wednesday, that's the day you should call them because they got the buyer's meeting set Saturday. So there's a bunch of calendaring issues there. And then I've got to notify them before Wednesday that I need their application by Wednesday. So all this stuff is being worked out in these forms and workflows. I've got a real sophisticated CRM that's able to do that. All these tools, Chris, Nick, these are going to be free for the people that come to the QLS. And I'll basically do a little section on how that you can use these to build your buyers list. And then there's one more thing, and I call it my dynamic action plan. Up till now, I have an action plan that whenever they first sign up, I tell them how to build credit, age of credit, mix of credit, balance limit ratio, and all the other relevant criteria that contributes to score. The dynamic action plan looks at the credit report over time and did they open up that new credit card? Did they get that installment debt that I asked them to? And it corrects them along the way and says, okay, I need you to do this or that, or stop charging up your credit card, or don't open new cards and all that kind of stuff. But the dynamic action plan is a step above everybody else out there to get people to where they need to be.
I love it. And what are they going to see? I should have asked you when I gave it. Is the link for the My Credit, is that a schedule link? smartrealestatecoach.com/My Credit. Is that to get in the door and just be able to chat with you?
If they want to get in the door and just chat with me, they can reach me directly, or they can use your link. I think your link does it. Would you be okay with if I give my phone number?
Yeah, go ahead, and I'll make sure that link does later. Yeah, any information, let's do that now, Paul. Any information you want to give them, social media, phone, or whatever, why don't you do that now? Thank you.
Yeah, so this is my personal cell phone number. Use it, but don't abuse it. It's a writer-downer. Please don't call me at like 2 a.m, but it's 724-664-6078, and I'll set you up with whatever tools that you need, and also if you need to have your own credit repaired or somebody close in your family, I will do that for you at a discounted rate because you guys came referred to us through the Prefontaines.
Love it. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for all those things, and thank you for the gifts and things you're bringing to QLS Live. Nick and Paul, anything else you think should be heard by the Wicked Smart listener or seen if they're on YouTube before QLS Live?
Sure, what Paul's talking about and all the automation and the workflows and everything, that's something for the last, 5 to 8 years that I've been doing manually, and it's worked. So now Paul's going to help with some automation on that, which is going to have this process be even more seamless. So I'm looking forward to it. And also, I must say, that is Paul's actual cell phone number. So I was amazed you were giving that out.
Yep, Paul, thank you. You like me and Nick, you're super open and super available, which I hear over and over and over again from other communities that just doesn't exist. So thanks for doing that. And I try to have people on the show like that. I try to have people on the show that have the longevity that you've had. So thanks again for all that good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in person, and between now and then, doing a lot of business with you.
Awesome. Paul, thanks for everything you do, guys. smartrealestatecoach.com/QLS Live, 50% off. Use the coupon code podcast50. Come hang out with Paul, Nick, myself, Zach, the rest of the coaches, and the family team. See you there. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in, you wicked smart listeners, to another episode of the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. Before we take off, just a reminder, head over to smartrealestatecoach.com/QLS Live and use the coupon code podcast50. Make sure you get a 50% off ticket. And guys, I haven't said this in a while. I say this on every episode, something to the effect of this anyway. I am, after all these episodes, fully aware that you take, 20, 30 minutes out of your week, out of your 10,080 minutes you have for the week to listen to our show. And I don't take it lightly. We literally are constantly brainstorming on how to bring you more value. In fact, you're going to see some tweaks coming up in our podcast. You're going to hear from more of our students, more real voices in the field. That's just one tweak we made recently, but we don't want to stop hearing from you. So although I love when you share the episode and subscribe to the channel, I would love you to leave a review. We want to hear from you. We want to make this better and better and better for you. At the same time, we're providing amazing, amazing content that you can go ahead and take action on. Go out and make it an outstanding rest of your week. I look forward to seeing you live and in person in Boston at the QLS Live event. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. If you're ready to invest in yourself and take your investing to the next level, check out our 90-day Jumpstart program by going to smartrealestatecoach.com/jump. That's smartrealestatecoach.com/jump, because now is the time to act boldly in this unprecedented market shift.